Indians were arrested for threatening and beating a fellow Indian who owed them money. They took the passport of the victim and his friend as collateral for the debt that grew to 3 million pesos. Gio Robles is in the leading news.
I really didn't know anything what was going to happen.
Sinubukan pang magpaliwanag ng lalaking Indian national sa mga operatiba ng NBI Special Action Unit matapos silang arestuhin ng kaibigan niyang kapwa Indian. Nakaposas sina alias Amir at alias Kumar nang dalhin sa headquarters ng NBI dahil umano sa pananakit at pananakot sa kapwa nila Indian national na hindi nakabayad ng utang. Nag-ugat ang reklamo laban sa dalawa nang dumulog sa NBI ang mga biktimang sina Mahesh at Ajit. Hindi nila tunay na pangalan. Napilitan umutang si Mahesh sa mga sospek nang pareho umanong magkasakit ang mga magulang niya sa India. 400,000 pesos ang inutang niya pero 25% ang interes. Sa sobrang laki, nahirapan si Mahesh na makabayad sa loob ng 6 na buwan. Kaya lumobo sa 3 milyong piso ang kanyang utang. Dito na raw kinuha ng mga sospek ang passport ni Mahesh bilang kolateral para piliting makapagbayad na damay maging ang pasaporte ni Ajit kahit wala naman siyang kinalaman sa utang ng kaibigan.
My passport was taken without my consent.
Okay.
So, and then they started pressurizing me, saying that I should pay them 200k to get my passport back, or they're going to tear it in front of my eyes.
Umabot pa raw sa punto na pinabugbog ng mga sospek si Mahesh.
And for 5 days continuously they assaulted me. They used to slap me, punch me, they used to beat me with sticks. I have all the medical records.
Bagay na itinanggi naman ng dalawang sospek.
We are in Philippines, we are in another country. Why do we need to fight here?
Tinitignan ng NBI ang posibilidad kung may sindikatong kinabibilangan ang dalawa. Giit ng NBI, hindi pwedeng collateral ang passport.
Remember that a passport is not supposed to be surrendered to any individual. Ang ating pong subjects being Indian nationals at hindi naman po talaga mga authorized representatives of government to get the passport from any person ay walang karapatang i-hold ito. And threatening the complainant na susunugin ay pinagbabawal ng batas.
Paalala pa ng NBI ang mga hindi nabayarang obligasyon ay dapat dumaan sa legal na proseso at hindi sa banta o pananakot. Nahaharap sa patong-patong na reklamo ang dalawang sospek. Kabilang dyan ang grave coercion, theft at paglabag sa Cybercrime Prevention Act. Nagbabalita mula sa Frontline. Gio Robles, News 5.
There is now talk of implementing a price freeze on the prices of basic commodities amid the oil crisis. According to the palace, Malacanang is studying this. Sandra Aguinaldo in the leading news.
Sa pagdinig ng Senado kaugnay sa krisis sa langis, tinanong ni Senador Bam Aquino ang mga opisyal ng gobyerno tungkol sa Executive Order 110 na nagdedeklara ng State of National Energy Emergency. Bakit daw sa energy lang at hindi State of National Emergency para mas malawak ang saklaw? Aniya, sa Executive Order, hindi nabanggit ang tungkol sa paglalagay ng price freeze sa pangunahing bilihin para makontrol ang pagsipa ng presyo.
I don't think it addresses the concern when it comes to basic goods, basic necessities and basic commodities and essential goods. I want to clarify, meron ba tayo ngayong price ceiling sa essential goods and basic commodities? Meron ba?
No price freeze as of now, Mr. Chair.
Sagot naman dito ng Malacanang, kabilang ang price freeze sa mga pinag-aaralan nila.
Hindi po nating sinabing hindi magpa-price freeze. Ang sabi po natin, aaralin po ito. At ito po ay babalansihin at kung ano ang nararapat para po hindi lang isang sektor ang maaapektuhan. Balanse para sa oil industries, balanse para sa taumbayan.
Iniinda na ng mga mamimili ang tumataas na presyo ng bilihin. Si Carmina, nagsabing nagpapadala man ng anak na OFW, halos hindi pa rin daw sumasapat sa hina ng kita ng mister na isang jeepney driver.
Buti na lang po sa awa po ng Diyos, ang itong anak po na sa Taiwan, nagpapadala po siya kahit papano. Kung wala naman po ito po, naghihirap po kami.
Payag pa ng grupo ng mga supermarket, nag-abiso na ang isang manufacturer na sa Abril, magtataas na raw ang presyo ng mga ilang produkto gaya ng instant noodles, pasta at delata.
Ang problema yung mga nasa probinsya nga kasi nga yung delivery cost. Shipping, tumaas by 30 to 45%. Yung iba, kapag shipping hanggang port or pier, dadalhin pa dun sa tindahan. So another tracking na naman ang babayaran.
Nagsabi na rin ang Department of Agriculture na kung magtutuloy pa ang krisis, maaaring umabot sa halos 600 pesos ang kilo ng baboy at 300 pesos naman ang kilo ng manok. Para sa GMA Integrated News, Sandra Aguinaldo.
More details on USL will write back. A helicopter off Hawaii's island of Kauai plummeted into a sandbar about 30 minutes after taking off. The NTSB is investigating the crash.
Tonight, 3 people are dead and 2 others flown to the hospital after a tour helicopter crashed off this Hawaii beach, overturned wreckage bobbing in the water. Officials say the helicopter plummeted into a sandbar off the island of Kauai just before 4 p.m. Thursday, about 30 minutes after taking off. A pilot and 4 passengers on board. The Coast Guard and Good Samaritans racing to the scene. It's the latest in a number of chopper crashes on Kauai. In 2024, a pilot and 2 passengers were killed after the NTSB says their helicopter broke apart after encountering turbulence.
On the new true crime docuseries, Betrayal, Secrets and Lies, Tina Meyer shares her story of becoming pregnant by a man who she says intentionally deceived her by saying he was infertile.
Neil was charismatic and witty, just a nice, normal man.
More cuddles, Ralph.
That was the ruse.
There's something very strange about this baby. You can keep the baby, great for you, but it ain't mine, darling. It seriously isn't mine.
I've spoken to probably 200 people who Neil traumatized.
Everything he told me was a lie.
I'd never seen anything as extreme as this.
Someone really needs to stop him.
For years, this story lived in whispers until it crossed the Atlantic and found an audience on the hit podcast Betrayal.
I'm Andrea Gunning, and this is Betrayal, a show about the people we trust the most and the deceptions that change everything.
Gunning is now sharing these stories on the ABC true crime docuseries Betrayal, Secrets and Lies.
Today, I'm talking with Tina Meyer.
Tina's story begins after she moves home to London for a new job, leaving New York where she'd been married, divorced, and had a baby.
So it was very early 2016. I was at one of these conferences in London. That's where I stumbled across Neil Lawman.
He's a successful businessman, and he even has an interesting hobby. He loves cooking and appears in YouTube videos.
If you cook this, I'd actually come around for dinner and let you cook for me.
Would you spoon me afterwards?
Why not?
Tina had no desire for a relationship. But after the conference, Neil texted her out of the blue.
And Neil seems like he might be good fun for a drink. Okay. And he said that he was divorced also, and they lived together in the States too, and that his ex-wife had got quite bitter about the fact that he couldn't give her children. He said, I'd had testicular cancer and I'm completely infertile. I felt like he was being, quite vulnerable and genuine. It actually drew me to him.
Tina starts seeing Neil more often. She still has no desire for a relationship, but she's having fun with him, and she's enjoying the sex.
That was part of what it was, and part of what was fun. Even though he told me he was infertile, I was still worried, because having another child was not in my plan. He's like, no, I have 0 sperm count. But he had sort of dropped into conversation about having a lot of allergies, and one of those allergies was latex. So he couldn't use protection.
Tina started noticing things about Neil that were off-putting.
I heard him have a phone conversation with his mother, And he was being so awful to her. And then there was the lying. He was clearly lying about his education. So it was these little things.
Just as Tina's hoping that this relationship with Neil fades away, she starts to experience this familiar but concerning brain fog.
And then my period was late. So I got a pregnancy test, immediately popped up, pregnant. I was like, well, no, I can't be pregnant. Bought a few more. That didn't work. I thought, Neil doesn't know. He can have children.
Tina decides to keep the baby and reaches out to Neil.
And then he really got quite venomous.
I cannot produce children. If you are pregnant, how you deal with it's not my problem. I have 0 sperm. Don't sit there putting things on me that this could be mine, because it isn't. Medically impossible.
It got really weird. So I just said, you're more than welcome to take a DNA test when the baby's born.
Neil refuses to do the DNA test. But Tina didn't need it. She knew he was the father. She hadn't been with anybody else. She just couldn't understand why he was adamantly denying it. But she moved on without Neil. And in January of 2017, Tina welcomed her baby girl, Josephine, and she calls her Fifi.
When my daughter was born, she had really serious jaundice. The light treatment wasn't working. And they said, then we're going to need blood types of the parents, any medical history.
Tina was afraid for her baby's life. She hadn't spoken to Neil in months, but she had kept in touch with one of his friends, and she reached out to him.
I suddenly get these long, nasty texts. How dare I contact his friend, and that he would not be giving any medical history. Luckily, the next level of lights did work. After a week in hospital, we were able to go home.
Tina and the baby are settling in nicely at home, but she can't let go of how Neil conducted himself. So she decides to take action against him.
I thought, I'm going to set the child maintenance service onto you for the next 18 years. Not because I want the money, but because you deserve it. Because you're not a nice person.
Tina submitted an application to the Child Maintenance Service, which is the UK's agency for child support.
When the report came through, it said that he had been assessed £5 a week because he was a benefits recipient. But then the next really alarming thing was that that £5 a week was split between 4 children. The first thing I did was go to Facebook and I look up Neil's last name, Lorman. Straight away, up comes a profile. I thought, well, this must be his ex-wife. And on the profile was a picture of 2 young girls. And they looked like Fifi. I thought, shall I write to her? So I did. I said, I've just had a baby, and the father is Neil Lorman. And quite quickly, she got back to me. The first line was just, I am so sorry that you have also been his victim. I'm like, oh.
Neil's ex-wife tells Tina that they've never lived in the United States. He's definitely the father of her 2 kids, and he has never once mentioned having cancer.
At this point, I realized that he had impregnated me maliciously. He knew what he was doing. There is absolutely justice that needs to be served against Neil. I didn't consent to be with a fertile man.
Flagged headlines. You know, I'm Adriana Aracia, following the new program on every Saturday called Music Collections by Me. Now coming up next.